From someone who grew up during this time and whose life was forever changed by it. But please don't be disappointed. I promise I will get to the healthcare reform soon enough. I'd like to introduce Joe Santiago.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I loved the 80s. Now, the movies were great, the music was great, the fads, the fashion, all terrific. But why I really love the 80s and what I want to tell you about is how inspired I was and how it changed me forever, how it motivated me forever. To understand why I think the 80s were so great, I think you have to first understand how bad the late 70s were. They were the goblet of our history. When the 80s began, our economy was in shambles. We had double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates, high unemployment. My parents bought a condo in 1980. They financed it at 15.25% interest. Imagine that. We had an oil shortage. We had gas lines. We had odd and even day rationings, if you can imagine that. Hostages in Iran. The Russians were in Afghanistan and aggressively spreading communism around the world. It was a dark time. When the 80s began, I was 14. And right away, something happened amazing. It was the 1980 Olympics. And the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid. And the USA hockey team was squaring off against the Soviet Union. We were expected to get not just beaten, but destroyed. The Soviets were a professional team that had dominated, won the last 4 gold medals. The USA had a team of amateurs and collegiate players, average age 22. I remember when the game started thinking, please God, don't let us get embarrassed. We fell behind 3 times, and yet came back and won 4-3. In one of the most amazing moments in sports history. And it was probably one of the best times in our country's history because the crowd, the players, the announcers, everybody went absolutely crazy. It was an incredible time. It gave us a sense of pride when we really needed it. I kind of felt that that was like a metaphor or a prelude of what was to come. There was a presidential election later that year, and Ronald Reagan defeated Jimmy Carter. And although I wasn't really into politics at the time, I can sense that there was an optimism, that there was a hope that things were going to get better. After Reagan was elected, things did improve. The economy got better, taxes were lowered, and businesses thrived. Unemployment came down rapidly, interest rates fell, inflation was under control, and it was a prosperous time financially. In addition, we also aggressively pursued to try to defeat the Soviet Union. And working with Margaret Thatcher and Pope John Paul, behind the scenes, the Russians were finally beat back. And eventually, by the end of the 1980s, the Soviet Union collapsed. The Berlin Wall came down, and millions of people were liberated. It was truly a glorious time in our history. By the end of the 80s, we had low unemployment, we had low inflation, unemployment rate came down to 5.4%. Being a part of that, and being part of the emotion that carried with it, it gave me a sense that our country can accomplish anything. One of the things that Reagan, when he gave a speech, whether people agreed with him or not, he gave a sense of optimism and belief that we are the greatest country and that we were destined, always destined for great things. And this belief was kind of infectious. From then on, forever, I would never allow myself to feel defeated. I always feel that there's always good things coming around the corner. Not because of any special reason we're different people than anybody else in the world, but because we have this optimism, because we feel in our ability to be a free people and have individual freedom, that we are destined for great things. I sometimes wonder if the reason I feel so good about the 80s is because I was young and I was a part of it. My parents have always told me how great the 50s were. And then I have older cousins that tell me how great the 60s were. Nobody really tells me much about the 70s. But I do wonder if young people growing up today have that sense of pride and belief in their country the way I did. I don't know. Sometimes I see a lot of young people that are pessimistic and not as optimistic as I think they should be. And I hope that's not true, but if it is, I believe it's important for people like myself and those of us that actually lived through the 1980s to tell the story about how our country turned around so quickly in such a short span of time. Thank you.